Okay, I would like to talk some TIG welding basics. The machine I prefer to use, my go-to, it is a Miller Dynasty 200 DX. Side view, front view. The DX model has some extra features on it, which come in handy. We're not going to go over those today. We're just going to go over some basic models. But the Dynasty is an AC/DC, so you can weld aluminum. You can stick weld, and it has different options on what device you're going to be using. Scratch start, a thumb throttle, a foot pedal, which we'll get into. It's got your post flow. If you're welding aluminum, AC frequency, balance. Your amps, right now we're set at 150. This can go all the way to 250 or 200 amps. You know, we'll dial it down, say 120. When you get into the 200 amp range, it's going to be more, probably more doing aluminum than steel or stainless, unless you're doing some really thick steel or stainless. But we're using argon, and that's 99% of the time that's what you're going to be using, argon gas to run through your TIG torch. You know, here's my argon, here's my flow meter. I typically run at 20 CFH. So if I take my torch, turn this on, let's see, turn the bottle on. So if I turn my torch on, if you see that ball, the top of that ball is around 20. So that's typically good for most scenarios. And then I want to talk about the TIG torch. This is a air-cooled TIG torch. This setup is best for field use, and I'll get into that. The TIG torch is a WP17 Weldcraft, which is made by Miller. And what I want to really talk about is this thumb throttle here. See, a lot of people will show you they're doing TIG welding with a foot pedal. Okay, you're sitting on a bench, you're welding, they're using a foot pedal to control their amperage. Well, in reality, in the real world, in the field, foot pedal is garbage. You're going to want to use a thumb throttle, which is this device right here. So there's a wheel right here. So I'm right-handed. Click up, the welder's on. Turn this all the way up, and I got it set on 120. That's how much amps this is pushing out, it all the way up. So if I need to turn the heat down while I'm welding, all I got to do is slowly turn this down. Now you won't know what amps you're welding at, but being a welder, as you get more experience, you'll be able to see by looking at your weld puddle whether you need to be hotter or turn the amps down. My post flow, you see how when I shut it off, the post flow kept going. You want to keep that post flow as high as you can without wasting too much argon, but it's going to protect your tungsten, which isn't in here right now, but it's also going to protect your weld. So this has a large cup on it. The cup is this part right here. So I'm recording myself, so I only have one hand. But this is your cup. This is a number 10 cup. Inside here is a gas lens. You can see there's a screen in there, and that makes your argon spray over your weld very nice. And then your tungsten, I typically use, this is the tungsten right here. So this slides into here. Hang on one second. So now you can see it. The tungsten's in. That's generally what I like my stick out to be, how far the tungsten's sticking out. Again, I typically use the red 2% thoriated tungsten for just about everything. To me, it holds up best. I like the way it welds. And I'm talking, I could be welding aluminum, steel, stainless, titanium. I've even done magnesium, and the red holds up the best in my opinion. It's always good to keep, an extra tungsten around, because see, this is sharpened on both ends. It's got a nice point to it. That's how you want to keep it. So if you do dip your tungsten in your puddle, or you touch your filler rod with it and contaminate it and screw up the point, you're going to want to stop and resharpen it. So it's nice to have another tungsten laying around you can just throw in. And then once you screw up 2 or 3 of them, then you can stop and resharpen it. Now typically a lot of people we use, talking about sharpening, they'll use a bench grinder like this one. You're going to set your tungsten on here, turn it on, you're going to sharpen it like a pencil, you're going to spin it in here like this. In the real world, out in the field, typically we just use our grinder with a flap disc on it, like so. And then, the wheel's going to spin, you're going to stick this on here and sharpen it. There's debate on whether, to sharpen it from the side, or as the wheel's spinning, sharpen it, facing the direction of the wheel. To me, I don't really see much difference. I just get a nice sharp point on there, and do your best to not dip it and screw it up, and it should last you a little while. Again, this is a 332 red 2% thoriated tungsten. Always keep a couple lying around. Just off topic, this is my preferred go-to welding hood. It's ESOP Sentinel. Very good welding hood. Best I've had, and I've had quite a few. I think you can pick them up for around $300. Very good hood. And if we move over, just a box I got with some of my TIG consumables. So I'll showing you a cup, like, here's a smaller diameter cup. Here's a smaller, medium-sized gas lens. You can really see the screen. This screws into the torch body. And then behind that, you'll have a collet. This collet holds the tungsten in place, backed by this. You screw this down, that tightens it up and holds your tungsten in place. Also, there's different companies that make cool products like this. This is a clear cup. It's still a gas lens. You can still see the screen inside. But you can see, like if you're welding, you can see more of your welding because of the clear cup design. So these are actually really cool. It's harder to use the cup to walk, because you could actually kind of melt this, versus these are ceramic, and they won't melt at all. And they will, after a while of being super hot and cooling off, super hot, cooling off, they will break. They are cheap to replace. You always keep spares. So this is just kind of my spare parts box that I use. Especially handy when going out into the field. I keep extra flap discs in here, stuff like that. Different sanding stuff. Your filler rod. See, I got a bunch just sitting right here. This is some stainless filler rod. You want to clean this with like a sandcloth material. Clean your rod off real good. You're just basically sanding it, getting that clean. Anytime you're welding, I don't care if it's steel, stainless, aluminum, you want everything to be clean and ground off, all the mill scale ground off, everything clean as possible, especially on aluminum. It's critical. Stainless, it's more critical. Steel, it's still critical. If you want a good weld, it's got to be clean. This is a TIG finger. So a lot of times, you know, with your gloves on, you can stick your fingers in this, and this is just a heat shield. You know, say I stick my pinky finger in here with my gloves on, and you know, I use this as a heat shield as I'm welding. As the product I'm welding on is getting very hot, you know, this protects me from it. Because normally when you're TIG welding, you're going to wear a thinner type glove, you know, like this one. You know, it's not real thick. You know, it's thinner, so you can feel what you're doing. So it's much better. Like this is more like a stick welding glove. You know, it's real thick. You can't feel what you're doing. You can't turn, turn on your equipment. You know, you can't feel anything. It's just a lot harder to use. You know, use the thin leather, cow skin, pig skin, whatever you like. Works very well. Again, you know, I prefer everybody start off learning with a thumb throttle or just scratch start. And when I say scratch start, that means you have no control over the heat. So if you set your machine to 120 and you put this, so that's called TIG lift arc, which is also known as scratch start. So you're going to strike it just like you would a stick weld, and it's going to come on, and you got 120 amps. So, or whatever you got your amp set at. You have no adjustment. You can't dial it up or down in the middle of your weld. You're going to have to stop, terminate your weld, readjust your amperage, and then continue. There's a lot of cases where that's all you got to use, and you just make the best of it. So yeah, that's what I wanted to go over for now, and then I'll be doing some teaching here pretty soon, and I'll get some actual footage. I got different filters that I've bought, you know, and I'm learning different ways to try to capture the weld where you can see what's going on. And so, you know, I can actually teach you through video, you know, if you can actually visually see the puddle and see what I'm doing or see what the person I'm training is doing. It's going to be pretty cool. So it's going to be, you know, a big part of my channel is going to be welding, and particularly pipe welding too. But we want to start with the basics and go from there. So thanks for watching.